On this show, we're driven by curiosity. We want to chart a path forward. Best people, best conversations. We're on a journey and it's just getting started. All right, everybody. We are back. I am Jack Murphy. This is the Jack Murphy Live Show. We are recording live on YouTube, live on Rumble. We are also live on Twitter, and we will be releasing this later today on the audio podcast. Don't forget that. Download the audio podcast everywhere you can find them: Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, etc., etc. Welcome, guys. One quick thing: we had an amazing time last weekend at Jack Brunch in Nashville. We had about 70 people. We had about 70 people come: men, women, children. We had an amazing time. We broke bread. We drank wine. There was even like a girls' table. They made friends. They're associating with each other. It's not just all men, so please come down and check it out. We have something like 80 maybe or 90 people coming to the one in Austin, which is on November 7th. Please go down to jackbrunch.com and get your tickets as soon as possible. It helps us plan. I really appreciate it. Also, if you are interested in, if you're a man, and you're into masculinity, brotherhood, and sovereignty, come check out the Liminal Order. That's liminal-order.com. Get on the wait list. Doors are open on the first Monday of every month at noon. We take the first 50 guys who sign up. Then you go through the vetting process, see if you got what it takes. And if you do, you can join us in the Liminal Order, liminal-order.com. All right. Today, we have somebody that I met at my Claremont Fellowship this last summer. And we talked and he lectured and it was great, but I wanted to get to know him a little bit better. And his name is Matt Peterson. He is the president of newfounding.com. He is the founding editor of The American Mind. And he is here with me live today. How you doing, Matt? What's going on?
Good. Doing very good. Lots of things going on. Everything's going on.
There's so many things going on and you're really busy and you've got like a whole, you're part of Claremont. You were the founding editor of The American Mind, which is a fantastic website where there's, just excellent essays continuously on the cutting edge of thought, philosophy, political philosophy, politics, even some other ones on outliers every once in a while too. Definitely go down and check that out. I know Spencer Clavin's working down there. He does a great job. Just saw Spencer this weekend in Nashville. It was a lot of fun.
Oh yeah, Spencer is a hard worker. He's done some great stuff for American Mind.
He really has, and he went to the Claremont Gala on Saturday night, hopped a red eye, and flew all the way back to Nashville just to hang out with us. So I really appreciate that. Matt, before we get started, where can people find you? Because I want them to get that information now, not later. Where can people find you on Twitter? Where else?
Yeah, on Twitter, it's DocMJP, DOCMJP, just 6 letters, DOCMJP.
There you go.
On Twitter, too much, being belligerent, and then throwing my phone down, going back to work, and then being belligerent and throwing it down again. I don't know if it's good for the soul, but sometimes it does feel good.
It does. It does indeed.
You can also really find the publication we were just talking about, AmericanMind.org, which is part of the Claremont universe, Claremont.org. But American Mind is kind of the punk rock version of the Claremont Review of Books. And we have, as you said, we've published many controversial figures that no one in the right would touch. And it's
I thought you were going to say no one in their right mind would touch.
Well, that's for other people to decide. And so they can decide for themselves who they want to touch.
Indeed.
Isn't that what we're supposed to do? So AmericanMind.org is Claremont. And then on the New Founding side, there's a couple things. There's newfounding.com, which is a rapidly evolving forum right now that's going to inform you about many of the new things that we're building. And then there's also a newsletter called Align, which we'll talk about as well, joinalign.us. And the reason you want to join align.us is because Align is just a simple, weekly, short newsletter that presents you with products and services from people who don't hate you. And it not just like, nothing wrong with these things, but not just vitamin supplements and power bars and the usual things that, everyone's hawking. That's all well and good. But I'm talking about, companies that sell really nice clothes, blankets, and things like that are made in America. Also, just giving practical recommendations for, if you're going to buy a cheap beer, I'm not going to judge you, but don't buy Coors Light or Bud Light, right? You might want to look at Pabst Blue Ribbon because they've never done any of this woke stuff, right? And that's the little factoid that ultimately needs to become, an app and a directory and all that sort of thing, and will. So joinalign.us is the other place.
That's awesome. And this is one of the reasons why I wanted to talk to you. You are not just an academic. You're, definitely scholarly. We had some great conversations at the Claremont Lincoln Fellowship this past summer in Las Vegas. I learned a lot from listening to you and engaging with you. But you're also out there in the world making things happen, being the change that you wish to see. And I think doing it are you doing this for profit? That's one thing I'm interested in, because I believe that the solutions to our problems can also be profit motivated and into the marketplace, where people decide whether or not you're giving the value that you promise. And if you are, they keep doing it. And if not, we're done. And that is sort of the way that I like to do it. And so I'm interested to hear. So let's start. Let's just get a little bit of background. Matt, when we were at the Claremont, I thought, man, this guy's really cool. I want to talk to him some more. I want to learn more about you. In fact, this conversation is the learn more about Matthew Peterson conversation I wanted to have in Vegas. But you were in such high demand. Everybody's talking to you, dragging you off to dinners and stuff. That sounded like a fun time, by the way. And so can you just give me a little bit of background, dude? Like, is doc... Are you a doctorate? You got a PhD? Did you study? Where'd you come from?
Yeah, I mean, never trust anyone with a PhD. So I have to give you that as a proviso. Let's start at the beginning.
Let's start at the beginning.
Who am I? Look, I think the way to start is I was born in Western New York. I got in the country. We moved around quite a bit. My parents were involved in politics. Were kind of evangelical-ish Protestants. They kind of converted like around the time they had me, very young. So I was a big, conservative Christian family, but there was never any sense that faith and reason, were opposed to each other. And I was homeschooled on and off because we were moving around a bit. My dad had some good jobs with the government, and I just loved reading stuff and learning about things because of that experience. And so I ended up at this crazy great book school, Thomas Aquinas College in Southern California. Now they have two campuses, one in Massachusetts. And it was kind of the Catholic version of St. John's. St. John's, if you don't know, is this great book school where you just, you small seminar classes. You actually read Newton, you actually read Einstein in those classes, and as well as the philosophy and whatever. So I went to the Catholic one because I thought, like, at least I felt like the other one was kind of lying to me about why they were teaching the books they were. Like, well, it's just neutral, we're just seeking the truth. And I was sort of like, no, there's got to be a reason. And I learned later, there's an intellectual tradition, and they pick certain books over others for a reason. Whereas Aquinas was kind of like, well, we're Catholic, and we think Thomas Aquinas is the big cheese, and so that's how we arrange things this way. It's like, okay, well, fair enough. At least you're being honest. So they ended up getting me at the end of the day. I ended up, of course, liking St. Thomas Aquinas too much. And then I graduated, and I thought, like, okay, am I going to go into like law and politics, which I'm interested in, or can I go study theology and philosophy? And I was really drawn to go study theology and philosophy. Thought that was more important than anything else. And if who cares, like, what about money? Like, let's just do this. But then even I, at my most idealistic, looked at those programs that were most interesting, and of course they weren't the highly ranked programs. And you looked at it and thought, well, I'm actually never going to have a job, like I could go do this, but this really pushes the limits of insanity. So then I thought law school, and I thought, well, I don't want to really practice law, though. I want to go into politics. Very, idealistic. And so I was like, I don't want to do that. And then I split the difference and got a degree in political philosophy and American government. But throughout that time, I was always tempted to and did start different things and have different adventures, engaged in very more practical projects. And Claremont has always had this vibe. Like that graduate school, a lot of the people who went through it, they'd go out and do stuff in government or, private sector, and then go back to education. And I feel like that's a healthy way to be. And so anyway, I did get a degree. I tried in education, realized if you're not in charge of anything, you can't really change the dial. And I'm just interested in changing the institutions and actually changing the system. And so I thought, well, this is a dead end. I'm just going to go make as much money as possible. And then my buddy Ryan Williams called me up and said, hey, I just became president of the Claremont Institute. We should have lunch. So I thought, there's no way I'm going to go back. I just decided I'm done with that. And then they grabbed me back in. And because Ryan, true to his word, said, no, we're really going to do things. We're going to change things. And we built new stuff. And, that's been great. And now, I'm ready to build some other things that just are needed, as you say, in the for-profit space. Some things you just can't do unless it's actually in a business sense. And, not everything. I'm not a libertarian, but something.
Heaven forbid.
Yeah. but I agree. I mean, and that's what we need now. In fact, I'd put it this way. I put it in an extreme way. Right now, if we don't create revenue generating entities that are moving in a non, whack job crazy direction, we will lose.
I agree on all of that. So many fascinating things to talk about. We can talk about the tension between reason and faith. That's about where I am in my life right now. And just commentary on theology and philosophy. But changing the institutions, that's really, I think, what we're talking about here. And we're really talking about making change, replacing institutions. I'm of the opinion, actually, that the institutions just need to be abandoned. I don't see much reason or possibility for reform. The long-term takeover project by the left, something that has been going on now for 40 or 50 or 60 years, and it came from the ground up, and it's like fortified all the way through. The leaders of the institutions were the last ones to get on board, and it was ultimately when Joe Biden in the joint session of Congress, his first address, said that the greatest threat that we face is white supremacy, terrorism, or whatever. And we all know that we're all white supremacists. So what he means is basically all of us are the biggest threats that America's face right now. And that to me was like the moment at which it was obvious that the entire apparatus, everything around us has been captured from the ground up all the way up to there. So when you say it's time to make change, replace institutions and such, this is what I want to talk about. So what is the new founding? What are you doing there? What is the premise? What is the goal? And then let's talk about some of the projects, because I'm very, very curious here.
Yeah, I mean, the way that, I could say, when you're trying to do new things, there's not buzzwords to describe them, and I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that. So, new founding is a holding company, but I think the best way to understand new founding now it's a media and investment company that is building a digital commonwealth, and by digital commonwealth, we mean a network that's dedicated to the actual good of its members. And I think that that's sort of the white whale. Like, that's the big prize. As Internet 3.0, starts to emerge, we need networks that serve people's needs digitally, that are actually designed to provide them with value, and instead of extract from them, right? Facebook is trying to harvest you. It exists to harvest its members. And there's something sick about that. And there's no reason it has to be that way. Google is based on, how many people are linking to, right, in their first breakthrough, how many sites, and we'll just rank the sites by how many people link to them. And whereas our conception at the high level, my co-founder, Nate, I think is visionary on this, Nate Fisher, who's also a Lincoln Fellow like yourself. But the way he'd put it is, what if we based the system on people recommending things and betting on things, right? The individual members that we allow in the network are able to upgrade and downgrade each other, and they're able to bet and recommend people, places, things, and that's the basis of the algorithm. In other words, like, put it back in the hands of human beings, so they're the ones driving these technology, and the technology, the bots, the algorithms are actually serving them. So that's kind of the highfalutin way of describing, like, the big plan, in terms of what's needed. But there's a lot of ways to get at that, and we're going to have to take a lot of shots to get at that.
let's talk about the premise and your hypothesis here. Do you
Yeah.
feel, and I hope I can anticipate the answer to this for your sake. Do you feel as though that your hypothesis is being reconfirmed all the time? And the reason why I ask you this is because I've started something maybe it's similar. I'm going to find out, but the Liminal Order is an intentional network where we're specifically organizing around our values in order to create a network to replace the institutions that have been captured. And in doing that, we founded it around our three values of masculinity, brotherhood, and sovereignty. And we believe if you take masculine men, you put them in a brotherhood, you can lead yourself towards sovereignty. And every day, I think that the hypothesis, or the premise for what we're doing here the premise have been totally reconfirmed every single day. Masculinity is under attack. They don't want you associating because when you're strong, you're stronger together. And ultimately, they definitely don't want you sovereign. And this is the way forward. So you feeling good about, your case every day, right?
Yeah, no, it's exactly that. I mean, it's not, I mean, for me, it's a question of, I think we know some of these things. There's some areas that are, I don't know how to get there. I need other people to help me figure out how to get there. Same with Nate, but we came together because some of this, we just know what needs to be done because we know the landscape, right? And I'm sure there's things we'll learn. I'm sure there's things I'm wrong about, but some of these propositions right now, if you just think about it like you would from an investment perspective. The entire world has changed and shifted, and there's deepening division, and there's a deepening divide among elites between competence and incompetence. Things are falling apart. Now, in a time like that, that's really scary. You have to really worry about risk. But the other side of that coin, the other part of the blade is there's great opportunity if you understand the landscape. And frankly, I don't just want to shield myself from risk or take advantage to make a lot of money. Although both those things I'm fine with, and more than fine with. But I want to actually navigate this for people, right? So we work with this maelstrom to get to where we need to go instead of all being crushed on the rocks. And so I think look, I think this is where things are going, and part of this is based on kind of a natural organic movement that just I happen to be involved in because my entire life was sort of about politics and culture. And even when I was completely burned out and said I'm never going to do it again, here I am in a for-profit way getting involved. So what does that mean? There's really three basic elements to this that are just really comprehensible. One is connecting investors with talent that wants to leave crazy woke companies or companies that they think are icebergs now. They're not allowing them to utilize their talent. They're especially in media, finance, and tech, I find, or those are the ones I know. And the investors want to invest in these companies, but they can't put out a press release because obviously they're still tied to the system. So connecting those people is number one to create new things. And even if that's as simple as providing them a room where, they all talk and have drinks and meet each other, that's great. I'm okay with that. But there's a lot more, of course, that could be involved there. And then number two is connecting people to products and services, made by people who don't hate them. Creating an economy within an economy, which ultimately, we should have, the entire supply chains should be brought back to America. But we need to reward and create an ecosystem in which businesses who don't force this crazy political radical lunacy down our throats are rewarded and in a broad-based way. So, Align, the newsletter, joinalign.us is growing really fast, is the first kind of nub of that, but there's a whole lot more to come that I think can be done in a way to bring a new ecosystem of business people. And then number three is a lifestyle media group that produces media products. You could think of them as publications, but they're really like digital media companies in tech, men's and women's lifestyle that I'll be approaching people like you about in the next few months. Oh. And the idea there is if we really have a digital lifestyle group, the kind of media products and everything else that will come out of that will just draw half plus the country who wants a better way of life, a more human way of life, and provide, cover in a way, an opportunity for businesses to, to reap the benefits of that.
Interesting. You know what I really like about talking to you, Matt, and this is why I want to talk. Like we can and we will get to the philosophical stuff. We will get to the here I'm back. We will get to the philosophical stuff. We will get to the founding stuff and the history and all kinds of things that I'm drilling every single person I talk to on because I'm trying to find some answers here. But the thing I appreciate is that let's just do it. I mean, no more waiting around, no more complaining, no more what should we do. We're just writing intellectual pieces on all the things that are wrong and bad. It's like, no, let's just go. Let's just get this thing going. I share a very similar sentiment as you do. I mean, I'm like, wow, what are we now? 2.5 years plus into the liminal order. We're at 800 guys, not just 800 guys on a mailing list, but like 800 guys in person doing real things, starting businesses. And man, if you knew the listeners, if you knew some of the businesses that you know that are out there that are exciting right now, that are coming out of the LO, it's really powerful. So let's talk. Let's go right down the list here. Connecting investors with talent. How are we doing this? What are you doing? What is the vision with that? What challenges have you seen? Are you able to get the guys out of the woke places and into the good places? Are you seeing new businesses being built and getting funded where people are deliberately anti-woke? How is this first part of the project going?
Yeah, so this for me, this started very organically, maybe 2 years ago or so, when people started to come to me and say, "Hey, buddy, can you get me out?" And I started to realize that in talking to people in private equity as well that they're kind of stuck too. It's surprising the extent to which it's really hard to find the right kind of talent who kind of gets what's required to stop a company from really being struck by this cancer. I mean, you have to know that you just need to get rid of that stuff, right? You can't have that. You can't allow that. And when they come and attack you, you have to have people in charge who have been through it before and realize there's no placating this, right? And they shouldn't be afraid of, for instance, if someone says they're going to start a conservative social media company, and then you say, well, what happens when they call you a racist fascist? Because they're going to. And if the response is, if there's any kind of hesitation and oh my gosh, but I'm not a racist, you're not going to make it.
Not going to make it.
You're not going to make it.
Not going to make it.
So anyway, there's a certain types, but anyway, the energy since the election, I would say, just has exploded. And the challenge there is that people who are talented, and a lot of them think, within the next year, I hear this a lot, within the next year, I'm probably going to get fired. Within the next year, I'm not going to take the vax. Within the next year, they feel like it's sort of getting imminent. Like they don't have the same time frame they did before. And they're willing to take a pay cut. They're willing to move, but they're not suicidal. And it's not cowardice. They need to know that there's other power levels similar to theirs with that talent, that sort of level of talent, who are willing to come together, and that there's some expectation of success, right? And if there's something already generating revenue, then so much the better. Like that, people will gravitate towards it. It'll accelerate. So the challenge is, though, that if you're coming out of these things, you probably have a particular skill, and they're not necessarily people who are going to be managers, entrepreneurs, executives, right? You're talking about people who are really good at, some sector and don't necessarily want to start their own business, right? So I think that the talent is the problem is more of an organizational one than anything else. And I could go into more detail, but I almost don't want to publicly. I would just put it this way. I think that there needs to be beacons that are basically, people know it when they see it. They know, like, if I'm associated with that, then I'm probably not one of these lunatics. And I could work with other people associated with that, or get to know people through that vehicle. And I think that's a big part of what needs to happen. But then there's also, even more centrally, I mean, Nate, Principal Investments, my colleague, Bart Lamont, this great guy, runs, and Nate Fisher, my co-founder, had Principal set up before we started New Founding. And that's evolved a bit, but it's similar to in the beginning. I mean, they're looking to take bets on businesses that are small to medium sized, right? People who are willing and want to sell to basically red state America. and invest in them and help them do that in a way that really helps them grow. So, Black Rifle, but in this case, in the new founding universe, if you do what Black Rifle did, we will tell everyone you're off the list, you're excommunicated.
There is something to be said for keeping the right people in and the wrong people out. And this idea that you can't have discriminating taste when it comes to that, or rules and standards by which to judge by, is absolutely asinine. And one of the key things, and this is one of the more meta elements of what you're doing, what I'm doing, what I think needs to happen more and more, barriers. And we have got to erect barriers. We have been living through an age of indiscriminate connection for decades now, whether it's World Trade Organization, whether it's NATO, social media, immigration, ideas, and like everybody just been like just oozing everywhere and oozing into everybody else. And I think that we're reaching the end of this, and we're in what I'm calling the era of strategic disconnection. And the idea is, man, barriers are good. Ironically, the corona response shows you exactly what I'm talking about, right? If there's a disease and it's spreading and it's going around everywhere, what is the first thing they told us to do? Stay away from each other. Put space in between you guys. Don't get infected by that guy over there who's sick. I kind of like that perspective. Maybe not for, dictating what we do in free America here, but in general, the idea of erecting barriers, keeping the wrong people, well, I guess the right people on the other side and the right people on the inside, is something that we all need to embrace. And here, you're trying to connect people with investors, talent with companies, and then people to products. How is that going? Align US. I mean, like, how many different manufacturers or producers do you have? What kind of what kind of volume are you guys doing? What's the vision there? Are you looking to be, AmazonRed.com? I have visions for this as well. Inside the Liminal Order, we are trying to what I call the gross network product. If we could just analyze every dollar that we spend on everything, all of us, and take it from outside of the network and move it to inside of the network, that's going to be beneficial for all of us in the long run and in the short term as well. So how is Align going? What actually are you guys doing? Are you going and talking to manufacturers? Like what's happening there, and how's it going?
Yeah. So, joinalign.us is just a simple newsletter you can sign up for. But that newsletter has grown like crazy without even almost any juice. I mean, we put some advertising into it that's also been very successful. People realize it provides value, I think, and people are really interested in this. I mean, I think this is where most of the country wants this, right? Everyone I talk to, everyone in our circles wants this. They all want to figure out a way to get off, say the economic grid, the globalized economic grid, right? They want a way to support through the products that they need, the services they need, people who are aligned with them. And, look, these are mostly people who didn't think this way until fairly recently, when they realized the left was going to completely shove this stuff down their throats, and they're done with it. People are done with it. So I think the more the merrier. We need a bunch of people thinking about this and trying to solve this problem, because it's difficult to figure out. Ultimately, I'm not here to like I said, sell the power bars and the vitamin supplements. Like, I want to create a new movement that politically move, right? And where we have power and we can say, you're not part of it, you are part of it, because we want to foster something that's greater than any one organization, right? That changes the country and it really defends half of America that's under assault. So, look, Align is a simple newsletter, but there's an important part of this that I think is really essential, and I think you grasp this in a variety of ways and are already implementing so many of these things in what you're doing. But a lot of people don't understand that it's not just about selling products and services. It's about selling products and services for a certain way of life. You sell things in general based on some aspect of a way of life that you're presenting as good, and the right's just been wrong about that being neutral. So the challenge is, how can we, in a real way, in an authentic way, write say 600 words about the topic of the day, and then weave together a positive vision of products and services that help you live a better way of life. So anyway, the newsletter is growing strong. We are talking to businesses and manufacturers and a number of other people. We're talking to people who know a lot of manufacturers. There's a lot of ideas we're kind of looking at. But just to give you your audience and you an idea of what Align will do, I mean, I think this will grow to very soon is a kind of deal site and a place where it's associated with the publications, right? This is not a new thing. Like a lot of people have done this. Gawker actually did this, of all places. So you have media properties, and then when we do it, we're all going to have a through line that makes a lot more sense, right? A lot of these companies were doing it with kind of products that kind of make sense for its brand, but they're just selling stuff. Where when we do it, it's very clear. If we have a company in there, we're recommending them based on them, not hating you, or at least not taking active measures politically against people as whatever, an outdoor a clothing wear company. And we're saying, hey, look at this company over here. They actually are on your side. They make stuff in America. And if enough people sign up, right, we can get a deal. We can do, we'll definitely have, that sort of thing going on. But what's most important, and that's publicity. We'll be talking about this, through media channels, saying, highlighting businesses and products. But so I think that's the basic beginning. The problem, I don't know if I know you find it interesting. I guess anyone who's listening to you then would also find it interesting.
Indeed.
The problem what's that?
I said, indeed, yes. Keep going.
The problem with the conservative Amazon is, first off, anytime I hear conservative in front of something, I get nervous. And then when it's like a business proposition, I go, it's probably not going to make it. Everyone wants the conservative Amazon. There's certainly something to that idea. The basic problem, though, with it is you see it with, God bless Mike Lindell, but, his attempt at it where there were like 5 businesses in a website. The problem is how to do that at scale. And if you don't do it at scale, there's got to be, it looks really bad if you're claiming to be an Amazon. People can tell how much is in the tank when they search around. And, it's actually, I think, much more complicated than people realize. So I don't know what this looks like when it fully evolves, but I know how it starts. And it starts with media products that are, advertising these companies, like the newsletter, a podcast soon that's highlighting them, and then a deal site associated with that you log into and you find all kinds of cool stuff, but it's not claiming to be comprehensive, associated with, media that's doing lifestyle stuff that people are interested in.
Yeah. Content marketing certainly is effective, and it attracts the kind of people that you want. It keeps them on the narrative arc that you want them to be on. You go down a shared journey together. You are able to express your values and attract people around those values through attraction. And then when you authentically and coherently and congruently, there's the word I'm looking for, I'll get there eventually. When you congruently pitch businesses that deliver a service or a product that matches with the values and the narrative that you're sharing within your content and within your media, well, then it all makes a lot of sense. It's not an actual, it's not an actual, it's totally not a scam. It's totally not just who cares who the customers are. You're cultivating a very specific sort of customer. And I think that there's a lot of, it's happening obviously all over. I do it right now. A lot of the guys I know do it. But I believe that this is expanding more and more as information basically becomes valueless, no value, because it's ubiquitous. It's everywhere. You can access any of the information you want all the time. The real value comes now in curation, right? And putting together just the right things that meet the right tone, that serve your values. And then in building a, tribe, I don't like to use that word, but, building just a community, right? A collection of people that share your values and see things the same way that you do. And it sounds like you're doing that. And your third item there was talking about lifestyle and media brands. I can see how this is, I can see how the vision is coming together there.
Good. I'm glad it makes sense to someone else out there. in terms of the media, I mean, maybe lifestyle is a little bit of a it's a little bit of a misleading, maybe. It's just, and I don't know what else to call it, but let me put it this way: it's, you don't have to get to the big, expensive movie level when it comes to media, to really hit it out of the park right now. What drives me nuts is that a lot of good people out there in conservative land, right-leaning land, great people who I know in their media. Their media is based on political commentary, which, I think a lot of them could make more money than they do if they had time of day and hired more people to think about marketing. Some of them are profitable, right? When you look at Blaze, Daily Wire, and these things, the Federalist, but a lot of them are nonprofits really still. And the way I put it to my intellectual friends who don't necessarily want to hear it is, an op-ed. The op-ed part of the paper is not what pays for the paper, and generally that's always going to be the case.
Right.
And the op-eds exist because the classifieds, back in the day. And so you got companies that can't quite make money off of political commentary. A lot of them are basically nonprofits. And then you want to make movies, I mean, great what the Daily Wire is doing. I mean, they have the audience. I get it. More power to them. They should move forward on it. But I'm looking at the scene right now and I'm thinking, why in the hell is there not a reality TV show just like all the other reality TV shows about people buying houses that follows couples, people leaving blue cities out to Nashville, Florida, and Texas, a based real estate show, there you could even copy the same models out there. Imagine, and why are you moving? Where are you going?
Right.
On this episode, this California couple decides between Idaho, the country living of Idaho, or moving to Houston. I mean, this is not rocket science. Why isn't it there a publication that, has an article that's just a signature, 3,000 word piece that's written so millions of people could read it, called "So You're Moving to a Red State"? I mean, there's a lot of people who are good on this. Like Dave Raboy is a great guy on this. He understands this moment and this need. But it just pisses me off that, where is this stuff? Or a friend of mine, I mean, all my ideas. See, I throw them out here. You can steal away. I don't care. We'll still beat you. But this is the collaborative spirit we need to work in. Another idea. So imagine if you have, American Man, a men's lifestyle brand. And there's already some of these kind of out there, a Top Gear style gun show with a bunch of cool guys. Your typical your celebrity Navy SEALs. Maybe you throw an actor in there. Maybe even throw a political commentary type lady in there. And then every week they take on a kind of evergreen gun topic or gun, and they talk about it. And they go out and shoot it. I mean, this is like a basic idea, right? A friend of mine, I got from a friend of mine who could easily produce it. And there'd be a ton of sponsors for that, right? And then we put it out there to someone else to distribute, however, whatever these other groups to say, here's the kind of content you need. And, we produce that in-house around the media group. And it's just, this isn't complicated in a way, but the people we have on our side who think, I mean, it's hard to do, right? And execution is hard. But with the people we have on our side are just so focused on the political commentary game, right? And it's important. I certainly am part of it, but I like you say, I just want to build things,
Yeah, I feel you on that. I've always been an entrepreneur. Even when I was a little kid, I was like, my dad got a dual cassette deck like in the early 80s. And I was like, oh man, I have this brilliant business. I'm going to take these tapes that we bought. I'm going to dupe them onto blanks and I'm going to take those to school and sell them. And he's like, whoa, he's like, hold on a second, kid. That's not quite how it works. But that's where my mind was, it's like, hey, we look, I know, right? It's funny.
That's amazing.
I was like, hey, we can make some money off of this. And when you start looking out there, you realize that there's just opportunity to make money everywhere. And I try to do this even in my old year-old real estate development career, we focused on what we called the triple bottom line, right? Like doing good and doing well all at the same time by hitting your profits, by being environmentally conscious. Yes, in building, you can be environmentally conscious without being an idiot about all of it. There's no reason not to build an environmentally sound building. Gosh, come on, people. And you can focus on making money while doing well at the same time. And I have no issues with the fact that the LO is for profit. It is a marketplace. If we don't deliver what we say we're going to deliver, people will leave. And this is the essence of networks that I think people need to really appreciate versus institutions. Institutions, after a time, exist to perpetuate themselves, irrespective of what their original mission was. So even when they're not giving the service, the meaning, or whatever it was that they're supposed to deliver to you in the first place, then they're just extracting from you so that they can stay alive. A network rises and falls to meet the utility of its members. If it doesn't work anymore, you just walk away. You just close your laptop and go outside, right? As that original meme tweet, can't use the exact quote on that one, as the original meme tweet said. I want to go back to what you said about the red house hunters, dude. That would be hilarious. Imagine this. We were looking to put my youngest daughter in a new school. And so we just went down. Imagine this on the show, right? We went down to the local playground. And we were just like, oh, do your kids go to this local school? And one of the parents, this is woke ass DC, right? And one of the parents was like, we do, but we have some, the principal's a little racist. And I was like, do tell. I'd like to learn some more about that, please. Because in this environment, if somebody calls somebody racist, to me, that's a signal. That's a strong signal that they probably just aren't woke. And if that's the case, then I am more interested. So it's like those little moments would make great TV. I'm like, oh, really?
Oh, yeah.
Tell me more about that. Red House Hunters. I like that quite a bit, man.
Yeah.
Do you think that it's very obvious right now that there is a corporate woke alliance, right? There's the woke capital. There's all the corporations with the Black Lives Matter flags and the commercials, and they're sending the billions of dollars last in 2020. Do you think that is a permanent, nothing's permanent, but do you think that's a stable alliance? Do you think it's authentic? Is it opportunistic? Will the opportunity that brought it together dissipate and we may see a divergence there? Or are they locked in forever and we're doomed because of it? Hey, false dichotomies are always a great way to talk.
No, they are. You can get with this or you can get with that.
Exactly, right?
Yeah, I don't think it's as strong as, really, I use the word the Borg a lot because, the cathedral, the blue church, whatever. Whatever you're going to call it, like everyone seems to march in the same direction and they seem to like feed off of each other and know when it's in their interests or really the interests of, I would say, the oligarchs ultimately. A lot of it is actually, of course, in the interest of the oligarchs, the people who are actually in control. And it is mysterious that I didn't see cities burning and the usual, unfair clipped snippets of video from BLM this summer. Things seem relatively quiet on that score, which makes me wonder, right, why is that? And to what extent have they been bought off by the man? Certainly if you look at what the lefties themselves think, they think there's a lot of tension. But I don't think it's going away anytime soon. I have to tell you, Jack, it's sad, but I just don't think, I think it has so much cultural momentum and has given power to so many people. It's the kind of thing where, forget about big conspiracies with super rich people. It's just the kind of thing that gives a lot of middle manager Karens, a way to live their life where they can lord it over other people. And that's really hard to eradicate. And that kind of feeling of moral superiority, just the practical level is gold for these people because look, a lot of their lives, the rest of their life is unhappy. Things are falling apart. And it like fills a hole, in a way. And as far as big corporate goes, we'll see. But so far, they're moving in one direction, man. I mean, it's like the ESG stuff, the BlackRock, the big dogs all pushing. Whether they like it or not, it's certainly many of them could be broken out, but they would need political help for that. They would need a different commercial cultural landscape or a different cultural movement to hide behind. So I don't see it going away anytime soon.
I don't see it either. It's kind of terrifying to see the coalescence, actually, of not only just the corporate and woke, but then the corporate, the woke, and the government all together to create our woke techno-fascist state that we're living under. And, after being called a fascist so many times, starting all the way back in like 2014 and 15, just for asking questions.
You were an original.
Yeah, right. I'm original fascist. I hesitate to use the word because I don't want to sound like those dummies on the other side, right? You're a fascist. I'm like, I believe in freedom. Like, you're a fascist. But you know what? Like, when the corporations and the government are moving in lockstep and the White House is reviewing social media posts in order to tell Facebook who to take down and then to coordinate all the other social media companies so that they do a comprehensive ban all at once based on the review of the posting made by people inside the White House. I mean, it doesn't get any more clear than that. When Jen Psaki said that they're, what did she say? They're bridging the gap between the corporations. Like, there's supposed to be a gap, and you're not supposed to be in the middle.
Yes.
And so, it is a word. Fascism is a word, and it is, let's just say this. The current alignment exhibits symptoms of fascism, to put it kindly. And that's, that sucks to understate it, right? That sucks. And it brings up these circumstances we were talking about earlier in the first issue that you guys are going after, which is connecting investors with talent or companies with talent or whatnot. And you said, quote, it's not cowardice. And when you were talking about like people wanting to leave these organizations or being afraid they're going to get fired or whatever. And what this brings up for me, very salient discussion, which is how do you know when it's time to take a stand, right? We're transitioning a little bit here, but a little bit more philosophical. How do you know when it's time to take a stand? So, for example, for me, my kids, they're not vaccinated no matter what anybody says out there to the contrary. I'm having this discussion publicly because I'm very curious and it's very important to me. How do you know when it's time to take a stand? If what you do has massive personal consequences for yourself, but no effect on the culture war, does that make any sense?
Right.
Are we in kamikaze stage now, or are we in tactical retreat phase? Are we in, where is the role of prudence? It's like, yes, I know that if my kid gets vaccinated, I'm compromising one of my values, but at the same time, I'm also exhibiting and manifesting more of some of these other values over here that I find important to me. So talk to me about, we're trying to come up with like a matrix inside the LO to like analyze this, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I mean, I think you're exactly right that it's not a simple thing, and it's very easy to tweet about how people should fight or speak out or, take a stand. And they should, but that doesn't really help anyone in any given set of circumstances because, like you say, it's complicated and virtue is complicated. Prudence is dealing with that complication. Like, it's the virtue of being able to figure out what should be done in a given situation, and every situation is different, which means that what is to be done is complicated matter. It's not easy. That's why you go to the wise old master when you're facing a difficult decision. You want that kind of wisdom, and you recognize it's needed. It's not just about the individual like taking a stand or getting theirs. Either way, so I think it is hard. I do think that the first thing though is to acknowledge we're kind of talking about people who already know what time it is. People know how bad it is, and really see the reality of the landscape. If you don't see that, then in some ways you're forgiven for being a fool. But that's a whole different kind of conversation, right? So someone who knows how bad it is knows that, okay, this is serious enough where it should drive me to some kind of action, whether it's defensive for myself and my family, or whether it's offensive, like I'm going to strike a blow against the other side. And at that point, you really have to think about what the purposes are, right? What are the different ends you're trying to achieve, and then how do you get there, and how do those things relate? And when what we're talking about, I think, right, some of that conflicts, right? An obvious basic example would be I want to leave this job on principle, but part of the reason I have a job is because I want to support my family, and if I don't have a job, I can't support my family, right? Right. So it's not, it's easy. So it's ridiculous to tell someone, well, you should just leave. It's an evil corporation. It's like, well, I mean, it might be an evil country, but people can't just leave. That's not the way life works. They have to look individually at the situation and how they can extricate. On the other hand, I think there are indeed situations in which, you can be a coward by staying, going along, and not extracting yourself or not speaking up. So, I mean, I guess I would say, just trying to think about the people that I know who I say aren't cowards. They know that their time is up because they know that on principle they're gonna be in a situation where they have to just say, I'm leaving, right? And I'm leaving on, and so they already have accepted the fact that they might get kicked out, or they'll have to make that stand. And then they're at that point, they're just determining, like, how can I do it before then? You know what I mean? And how can I do that in a way that makes sense before that, without provide maximum value to my life and family? Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense. It makes a lot of sense. And you said there's a difference between there's also acting and there's speaking out. Most people don't have a platform like you or I do, and so for them, their action is like a personal decision. Speaking out, where you can encourage other people to make decisions that make sense for them in the moment, their own prudential considerations.
Mhm.
That's also a power. I wonder. I just wonder, like, so many people are having these conversations. This trend is in place.
Mhm.
There's nothing on the horizon that gives us any indication as to whether these tough decisions are going to become fewer and less frequent in number. They're only going to accelerate, and people are going to be faced with increasingly difficult decisions, which is why I like this other part. You guys also are working on the flip side. There are people who are looking to split away from this, but they have to
Yeah.
have a place to go. Right?
Mhm.
There has to be a place to go. One other element that I think might be useful, and I'm not saying you should do this, but here's an idea for somebody else out there with nonprofit funding. How do you teach corporations to stay anti-woke if that's their goal? Right? And if
Mm.
you're not expressly anti-woke, you will become woke. That's not my original idea. It's been around
Mm.
for a while, and I think we've seen it that if you're just bouncing along as an institution, eventually one day you're going to find out that all of your middle managers are woke and they're demanding it of you, and they've already gone to the board. And if you don't get on board, you're out.
Yes.
I've
Yes.
seen this happen.
Yes.
I've seen this happen. So any indication that you see any of this changing, any of these pressures changing moving forward?
Overall, no. But there's certainly, signs of life out there. I mean, there's certainly, some examples. Recently, I mean, some bigger examples. I don't know if anyone's really proven any of this, but you will hear people say in our circles, for instance, that Coca-Cola and American Airlines, right, and the Georgia election law did pull back, and there were some friends of mine who made some harsh videos. The videos were great because they were like, they were just pretty straight up, like, political messaging videos. But they didn't just say, why the hell are these companies involved in the people of Georgia's, fighting the people of Georgia and what they want for their election law. They also said, your company sucks. Like American Airlines, you have all these complaints, against you, and your service is terrible. And then Coca-Cola, like, everyone knows you're killing people with your unhealthy products. Which I mean, I'm sure that people at those companies saw those videos. I'm not sure, how well they were distributed, but they certainly got out there a little bit. And I mean, it's true that they kind of backed off. That's the kind of thing people will just kind of talk about. You see some evidence for this. I know people who are taking steps to set up more and more pressure for these clowns in the manner that the left does, which is a little bit more belligerent. I think there's going to be more people on our side doing that. And so there is a sense in which, I mean, if you wanted to take the white pill on this, you'd say, look, the right actually has never put pressure on board members in the way the left does, right? Or maneuvered in this way. And they've never even heard, they live in places, they never even heard anyone say, something like, why the hell would you do that? We don't want that. So I think there is an ignorance on the side of the companies and kind of the culture they inhabit that on some of them, some of them want to just destroy all of America and push everything on everyone. But others, I don't think they realize, because they've never really seen the full-fledged, 40% plus of America go, you know what? F you. Like, not F you Brandon anymore, like, F you Starbucks in a big way. And also, you see, of course, the Black Rifle example, which everyone knows. I mean, I just was belittling them because of the direction they've gone, but it's still, I mean, that's a $250 million a year company that next year, right? If everything keeps going the way it's been going. So, there's positive signs, but to me, the most positive and I don't know what can be done with those businesses. Like, I know that you should put pressure on them, like we have never put pressure on them before, using the same methods the left does, which is shareholder groups, like writing their letters and protesting, shareholder protests. That's all great. We should put pressure on them by getting much more activist, and all that. That's all fine. Do boycotts. That's fine. If you do boycotts realistically, that's good. Don't tell me I can never go to Starbucks again. I mean, I try not to, but just say, on this day, we don't want anyone to go here and we're all going to go here instead. Okay, that's more, millions of people might do that. And that's all great. To me, like, what's more exciting than any of those things is actually, just throwing the spear and getting the blood, getting blood from them by taking profit share, by actually growing businesses that start to eat into their lunch and drink their milkshake. Like, that is the ultimate revenge. And that's the ultimate sign where it would scare the crap out of them more than, the videos on the internet, which I'll absolutely be part of making, attacking them and all that. It's if you all of a sudden you start to see a $3 to $5 million company become 15 to 20 million and go up and up and up, people will notice. I'm sorry. As soon as we talk about these topics, I just start going into kind of preordained circular rants that are just there in my head all the time because we're moving on this.
It is not a rant. It's absolutely right. I mean, there are lessons to be taken from the left's playbook. Rules for radicals, for example, right? I think one of the rules is target and isolate people, individuals at the organizations. We have to identify precisely who it is who's making the decisions that we don't like and call them out and blow them up and make life miserable for them. There is no time left on the clock to be all academic about it, to be all above the fray about it. I believe Anton wrote on Machiavelli to say, better to be a hypocrite than a victim of one. I'm not sure that that's exactly right, but I get the gist here, right? Which is, it's time to fight, y'all, and it's time to have a critical conservative theory, right? Like, we need to put action into the philosophy and not just write another effing think piece about it. Yeah. It brings up an interesting question. It's like, I think that you and I and all the people in our circle, we're all very focused on what the founding was about, what the founding principles were about, what the vibe was like in America, where the vibe in America should be going. And you would think that we would be the establishment. You would think that we would be the guys in charge, the ones that are connected to the founding and understand what the founders wanted and what the people wanted at the time and what the intentions were for the whole thing. But we're under occupation. We're under occupation. And so I've answered my own question here, but I was going to ask you, if you had to say who's the insurgent these days, it's people that are tied to the founding principles and the American spirit and are willing to fight back against this. Are you in an insurgent, posture? I mean, do you see, I love Darren Beatty's The Global American Empire, The acronym for that is hilarious. You know, I see not only, and he focuses a lot on international, and I see not only that the fact that the global American empire or globalist American empire is occupying other countries, straight up for sure. We have, but I feel like it's occupying the United States. You know, I mean, there's been a divergence going back for a while now. But do you feel as though you're like an insurgent in your own country? Or maybe we shouldn't use this word. I don't know.
Yeah, that's probably a dangerous word to use. But I mean, these are dangerous thoughts because, and the sad thing is that, I mean, they're the thoughts of millions and millions of Americans who care about America, and they were the thoughts of pretty much everyone in America. What, 20 years ago? I mean, you know, so it's
Right.
there's a couple things going on here. One, I think, is, I mean, Darren's not wrong to talk about the globalization, because the identity of the elite is very much, you know, not tied to America. The whole idea, like, well, countries are just kind of neutral, you know, vehicles, and patriotism is embarrassing, and we all know we can traipse from London to Paris to New York, and we're all part of the same kind of deal. And the idea that, you know, the nation is important is just really foolish. Really foolish idea, but that is their identity. So there's no loyalty. Like, they don't care that millions of people are streaming over the border. I mean, I don't care, you know, what race or ethnic background or philosophy you have or theology you have. That's just batshit crazy. I mean, no people of any kind who have ever had a country or a tribe or anything else would think that that is good policy or a good idea. And the only reason you could potentially want that is because you have no loyalty to the idea of America as a country or your identity as American. Your primary loyalty is to being an overlord, and you want cheap labor and power over a mass of people in a caste system. And so it is an empire in that way. The empire, like Rome, could be kind of diverse in a way, right? Because they crucified a lot of people, and you knew if you messed with them, they would kill you. And they established a caste system for the sake of order, right? Where you have, you know, citizenship is up here, everyone else is down here. Ultimately, like, that's what they're doing. So, so I don't think that, you know, I don't think the same way about what America is with those people. And then the problem is that they've also transformed the educational system so that lots of people are just brainwashed or, you know, confused, who otherwise probably would have pretty normal, you know, thoughts about what a country is and should be. But, you know, they've controlled the media. From the time kids are little, they see this stuff, and they control the educational system. So, yeah, I mean, I consider, the way I feel about it is, we are in this, though I like the words, the rolling revolution. We are in, like, 1917, a type of that situation. No one knows how serious it is, but it's not going to stop until someone makes it stop. And it keeps on getting worse every day. And I don't think I'm alone in that.
It's not going to stop until someone makes it stop. This is the vibe I've been trying to put out on my social media quite a bit, and I relate it to Rikki Tikki Tavi. If you remember the story of the mongoose and the cobra, you throw them in the sack, and only one of them is coming out. My brothers, we are in the sack. Pick your animal. I don't care which one it is, but only one of us is coming out. And you're absolutely right. It's not going to stop until someone makes it stop. That's heavy. Like, that's a pretty heavy revelation to come to. And there's literally not a single sign of moderation on the left. The only thing I see that gives me any hope at all is, you know, moderate lefts being like, yo, what is going on here? Right? Like, guys like Matt Stoller, like, he's a Democrat.
Right.
He probably hates the fact that I always reference him in this position, but I do. He's a Democrat. And you know what? He's appalled. He's absolutely appalled. He was appalled by Obama. He's appalled by Biden. He's appalled by the antitrust circumstances in America. And we need more of those guys, but those still aren't the ones who are going to make it stop. Blackly, oh, can I even say that? Joked about we are only going to survive if somebody on the left at some point was like, whoa, we can't just kill him, you know, right? Like it's gonna get there.
Yeah.
I feel like
Yeah.
it's gonna get there, unfortunately. And like we're basically counting on some moderating force on the left emerging to rein them back in. And there's really no evidence of that at all. And part of the reason is because the kids that keep being fed into the system have no allegiance to America, have no connection to the history, have no sense of patriotism, much less a far cry of, Lincoln's political religion or any of the energy that George Washington or Ronald Reagan talked about in terms of an intense reverence for the Constitution and its laws, and remembering that people died to create this system. And if we don't honor the system, we're not honoring their deaths and their sacrifices. It reminds me of a story. My kids were just telling me, and they're woke. My son is is woke. So I have to teach him a little bit more. And my daughter, every once in a while, she's like, they just said this crazy thing in class. So I know she's starting to get it. But he said that you can't say God bless America because that means God won't bless any other countries and your country isn't special. So you can't say God bless America. So they're teaching kids in school right now that saying God bless America is a bad thing. You can't say that. Nationalism is bad because when you say you're a nationalist, it means you think that your way of doing it is better than other people's. Interesting. Maybe it is. And they say you can only be a patriot just means you love your country, but you can't love it enough that you think it's better than the rest of them. So what I want to ask you, and this is where we're getting a little bit into the stuff that we talked about this summer for sure, is what is the role of patriotism today? Reverence for the Constitution and the founding. Where is it? How do we get more of it? Is that idea gone forever on the left and with many of the youths in the blue states? Do you see any evidence of a organized resurgence of patriotism, a connection to Lincoln's ideas? Where do you see that vibe right now? And also, again, what can we do about it?
Yeah. I mean, that is such a good question. I think it's more important, that question, and so many others about even structure and institutions. Because at the end of the day, if you don't love your country, you don't love your political community, then it will fall apart. And you're susceptible then to, it's a dangerous place to be, because you're susceptible to anyone who wants to start their own country. And, that's a miracle to be able to pull that off well. On the other hand, like there's lots of people who want to do it poorly for the wrong reasons. So anyway, it's a miracle, as a professor of mine used to say, if anyone starts a country that lasts for more than 5 minutes. And we've been around a little bit in an intentional way. So here's the deal. I am very worried about this. I think that it's not only kids on the left or who grow up in the schools who don't have an attachment to this country. I think right now it's anyone on the right. I mean, if you're born in 2000 and you grew up, in basically post, 9/11 America, you have seen nothing but crap from this country. And in the media, you've seen nothing but, a kind of dystopian nightmare. And so even, folks on the left or the right who are younger, who understand this is all bad, I think they have, a barrier to realize, well, what about this is good or was good? Because they don't remember it. They've never seen it. And this causes a big problem on the right because you kind of have older boomers who, whether the kids believe it or not, like literally lived in an America that was, according to what Suds on the internet seemed to like, they would consider it based, right? I mean, they lived in that America. There were moments, yes, corruption is always with us, whatever, but there were moments where it was in fact better, and in various ways. And so, so if you don't have that memory anymore, it's going to become harder for the people on the right who are younger to figure out, well, what do I love about this country? What am I trying to save? So, I mean, having said that, I mean, that's a very dark scene, right? I mean, that means, what are you going to do? And then if you do love your country, you're trying to figure out, well, what leaders will actually stand up to this? And gosh, if I go to a protest and some feds and a few crazies together do something bad, then it's going to be thrown on me as a domestic terrorist. Like that's where we're at. So one note though of maybe hope. I don't think that, all that being said, that anyone has really, like, you just see, like, you're doing this. There's a number of people just, who realize this moment are kind of pushing in this way rhetorically. But I don't think we've seen anyone really say, hey, wait a minute, like to normal people, this is your country. And these principles, are in threat. And this is not a joke. I mean, Trump kind of did that, right? Which is why he was so popular. So I don't think we're like, that's Trump's whole thing. Like, no, I love my country. But the problem is the boomer mindset kind of can't admit they've ruined it, right? Like we need to be able to say, like, we make it great again. The again part was right? And hey, we can make it better. Like we need to have an attitude that is much more positive and much more belligerent and reaches back into those principles. So what I think is, at the end of the day, I'm not with my doomer friends who think it's all over or think the whole slate. I don't think any slate can be really wiped clean. We won't live to, it'll be a cataclysm if that happens. Maybe it does. I think, the best play still to save America is to really dig deep into those principles and apply them today and say, this is still what this country was. It hasn't been that in a long time, and it can't be that in the future. It's probably going to need to be something a little different given the circumstances, but this is still America. And if it's going to remain one thing, this is what we're fighting for.
Indeed.
Does that make sense to you? I'm curious your thoughts on this one.
It does make sense. I mean, one of the key things that you nailed is that the boomers need to either get out of the way or take some responsibility, right? Because basically where we are is a byproduct of either their proactive actions or their negligence. And one of the things that was neglected was, defining who is an American. Like, what does it actually mean to be an American today? Now, we know, and I'm sure I'll get the commenters quoting me the 1790 Naturalization Immigration Act, and we know about the posterity, for us and our posterity. We know all that stuff from the founding. And we certainly know that up until 1965 or whatever, right around then, America was 90% white. I mentioned this fact to kids at University of Maryland the other day, and they were like, wait, what? Are you kidding me? 90% white. It's crazy because, of course, where they are in Maryland, it's like, I think, almost a third of residents are foreign born, not just like foreign heritage, but like foreign born, actually born in different places, which is all fine and dandy. But the question is like, the genie is out of the bottle in terms of all that. The 90% is no longer a thing. The 1965 acts happened. There's all kinds of change in all kinds of people, whether they came here illegally or not. The illegal ones, obviously, totally different conversation. But the question is like, who is an American? The founders knew very clearly what they meant when they said who could be an American. 1790 Act, you can look into that, see what it says. But like, what is it that binds them? My family came way after that. I am definitely not a son of or daughter of the Revolution.
Right.
We are definitely like late 19th, early 20th century people. And on both sides of my family. So we've been here for many generations, right? And I don't see myself as anything other than American. What is it? And I'm reminded of a conversation with our friend Pedro from the Chronicle. Pedro's Mexican, right? And yet he has a very strong attitude as who could be an American. And my other friend that I have, who said that this is the fundamental question that we failed to answer. In this generation, who is an American? What do you think defines an American today?
Well, I don't think that's a good. I don't think the reigning definition would be, among the kind of people who actually rule and the people who want to be like them, is not really citizenship in the old sense, right? What they mean by being an American is really having a passport to, the global American empire. I mean, that's what they mean by it. And now people are people, and there's a natural desire to kind of love your own place and all of that. But people get weird now. The elites get weird when they talk about citizenship. There's really no such thing as citizenship for them. Rights and duties that come out of being a citizen, which means you have some share in the rule of your own country. So there's self-governance. Really, self-governance requires virtue, and self-governance is, it's kind of a pain. Like, you can't just sit on the couch and eat potato chips. Like, self-governance means you got to do stuff. That was the notion of citizenship. And so that's always easier if you have a homogenous population, by the way, whatever the population is. Like, there is a sense in which the more unity there is among them, because they agree on the same things, they have the same traditions, they see themselves as related in some way. I mean, that's just normal human nature, tribalism, and on the good side, which is absolutely that, there's a kind of unity there, so that ultimately, like Aristotle says, ultimately you want a society in which everyone sees each other as friends because they're countrymen. And his example is in Sparta, you can eat the fruit of like anyone's tree when you're traveling, because it's just like, of course, you're traveling, you're hungry, take an apple from the tree, and that's what you want. Yeah.
Well, I was just in a state somewhere this summer where it was illegal to reject somebody a glass of water. And it seems to me that that's very similar. I think it was Arizona, might have been Nevada, where like literally is against the law to reject somebody a glass of water. If you ask for a glass of water, they have to give it to you. That seems like a similar sentiment. And I appreciate your answer, because it does call to the forefront the difference between becoming a citizen for the opportunity, the land of opportunity, meaning I can come here and get rich, material wants, or duties, obligations, right? Rights and duties, which come together. And I think that what we talked about at the fellowship late into the evening was that today, what defines who is an American? Somebody that believes and loves the stories, the heroes, the mythology, the founders, titans of America, the values, and wants to participate in prolonging those things. And I think that that's actually a very simple cutoff. It's like, do you believe in the founding? Do you believe in George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, all these guys? Do you believe in Babe Ruth? Do you believe in baseball? Do you like apple pie? Like all these things are really important, because I think that you've got a lot of people now who are like, no, I don't. I don't agree with the founding. I don't agree with the founding principles. The whole thing was founded in hate. The whole thing was founded around slavery. I don't like Babe Ruth. I don't like baseball. I don't like apple pie. I don't like the family. I don't like dads. I don't like patriarchy, which, you know what, is not a bad word, right? And these people they don't share in the myths and the stories and the heroes of our country. And it's hard because nobody's promoting that crap anymore. And that's why Claremont it can be such an outlier in this environment, because they're still talking about these things, the myths and stories that are important to us, and people think that's weird.
Yeah, well, I think tens of millions of Americans don't think it's weird and are totally cool with it.
Right.
But then there's those who've really been influenced by the Borg over the years, and they take umbrage, and they don't have. This is why we're in such a serious way, and this is why it's completely irresponsible what's going on right now. They talk about extremism and radicalism on the right. Like, what is going on right now is completely irresponsible, because even in the best case scenario, even if you agreed with the principles of the left, right, what they're doing right now is just running a country into the ground and guaranteeing to split it up. They have a notion of citizenship that exactly is basically a basket of stuff that you're supposed to get, and we're supposed to give the rest of the world, and everyone can come over, and it's like a benefits package. Can become an American, get the benefits package. Now, look, there's nothing wrong with that per se. It's maybe part of something else. Like, there might be some bennies that come with the job, but it's a job, and the job means here not the economic opportunity that you're coming for, but the job of being a citizen, a good citizen. And every country has the right to choose, who can potentially do that and who can't. And here's the biggest problem. The biggest problem is just, again, it doesn't matter. There's so many crazy people who want to, either on left and right, who want to get into kind of a weird, racial essentialism and just in kind of bizarre ways to me. It doesn't matter. Color, the ethnicity matters. The differences matter only in this way. It doesn't matter what the colors are. You can mix up the equation, right? That's not my claim. Just I'm prefacing this because I know what people will say. The problem is that if you just take a whole ton of diversity and dump it into, any regime, it causes a lot of problems. Everyone understands this. Every other country understands this. The Chinese understand this. The Russians understand this. Many European countries are, coming to understand it, but they're like us. They pretend it's not a problem. This is how the Roman Empire ultimately dies long term. I mean, this is how you destroy countries. You can't just mix and match with millions of people and throw them all together and think everything else hunky-dory. That is the height of political irresponsibility. And if you're not, moronic by doing that, then you are malicious, because this is not something that is conducive to human flourishing and human happiness. Ultimately, for everyone, you have to be very careful about how you build a country and how you assimilate people to, the same ideals, yes, and the same traditions and the same families. It takes a while for people to, to come together. And when America's been successful, it's been because we took assimilation seriously. And we took our time, ultimately. We said, we need to slow down. Right? We're all going to try to live together. And it takes time to develop that. These people have no idea what they're doing. They have no idea what they're doing. They don't care or understand the basics of political philosophy at all. I mean, just like the basic, like you teach a freshman, in a decent time and place. And in fact, and then they just call everyone a racist, fascist, Nazi who disagrees with them. So, Claremont is through giving a damn about what they say. As certainly I'm through with that, giving a damn about what they say. But we need to be able to talk about these things in a serious way.
I appreciate that commentary. 100% accurate on that. And one of the questions that I took away from the fellowship and that I've been asking everyone I've talked to since then, it was very clear. Hamilton said very clear, and I think it was echoed in other parts of the Federalist Papers, that the government was created like a coat to suit the people. It had to be tailor fit, and what made sense in Washington made no sense in Paris and was preposterous in Petersburg. Some paraphrase of all of that. It is very clear that the people have changed. To what extent do we now require a different cloak? Can the cloak that was designed, and I have a few questions here, because the cloak that was designed then, does it fit the people that we have now? This is one question. The second question is, and I'm leading a little bit here, is were the founders focused on creating a tripartite republic, constitutional republic, or were they focused on creating the right government at the right time for the people that were there? And then is there, and this is the third part, and you can take all this and address however you want, are there other regimes that would protect the natural rights of man in the way that our government was intended to do?
Those are good. Those are good ones. Those are the big ones. New founding.
Right.
Yeah, so there's two sides to this. One is that, in my opinion, there has to be certain, and I know we're all not supposed to say this because all of us are against the neocons, and we are, but there are certain universal principles of human nature that kind of dictate what can and can't be done politically throughout human history. And they're applied differently in different times and places, but there's got to be, I would argue, I mean, it's a longer discussion, but I'd argue there's got to be some of those, right? It can't just be all willy-nilly. Human beings are a certain kind of thing. There's certain recognizable facets to them, certain recognizable needs they have, desires they have, and accordingly, there'd be certain principles or rules about building human community, right? So there's that on one side. And then we argue about what those things are. That's our big arguments about philosophy and ethics, and we argue about ultimately what those are. But they got to be there. And then the other side of it, like, yeah, you have to fit any kind of political structure or form, which is going to shape the people. It also has to be match the people, right? So like a measure, like a ruler. Aquinas actually talks about law as a ruler, a measure. I mean, there's kind of two ways in which you can look at that or use it, right? You can't use it in certain circumstances. To some degree, whatever you're measuring has to correlate with the ruler, right? I mean, does that make sense? So it's both ways, right? The people, there's kind of universal principles, but the people are going to dictate what kind of form and structure you can establish in that time and place. I mean, hell, the land is going to, the landscape, physical reality is going to dictate what kind of like government you can have, and shape it in some way. So I think that if we're being honest, at first blush, your first question, it's absolutely the case that we are not the same people. And I don't just mean by that we're a lot bigger, or we have people from different countries, I mean that the kind of people we are, right, is different. So one example would be there's really not a single one of them, whether they're religious or not, who thought you could really have the Republican form of government that they established without some kind of religion. And generally they're thinking of Christianity. I mean, if that's really what they thought, we might think, well, that's stupid, and I get it. Like, we're all moderns, right? That's dumb. But they really thought that, and they were kind of smart. They're the ones who actually founded the damn thing, right? And why don't we hear the right talk about that more, right? Why don't I hear people say, well, the founders didn't even think you could have this form of government if the people, weren't religious in that way and didn't have that. Maybe you could make an argument you could do it in some other way, but they didn't do that. So why aren't we talking about the fact that this isn't even possible, what they established, right? There's a number of points like that where I would say, I think there'd be probably a lot of agreement, at least after a few beers with people who lean right, to say, yeah, this is very different. And what then form of government do we have? The code would have to change. But I would say the code has already changed. I mean, we've already a few times, refounded America, and over the last century or so. So, you see it with Wilson, FDR, the Civil Rights Act. I think Chris Caldwell's book is very good on this. We've already slowly changed the form of the regime, in our interpretation of the Constitution, at least, and the laws we've passed, and the structure of the administrative state, by the way, which is now, rules Congress. Congress is a creature of that monster. So we've already kind of developed something different. So I guess it's more appropriate to talk about this looking forward. We don't like what we have. What we have needs to be refounded or reshaped or realtered, if anyone's being honest, and because the way it's metastasized. And then what on the other side of that? Like, what does victory actually look like? I think that's an open question, because you'd have to take into account, where we're at and what led to victory, I think, against the powers that be now, and say what's possible in the future, given, the size of the country, et cetera, et cetera. But I guess what I would say is, and then to be definitive about your last question, I would say, controversially, I don't think maybe a lot of my Claremont friends would not disagree, would agree with me. But I think there's all kinds of regime forms that could secure natural rights in the way most people think about, changes in regime form. So I would say that, yeah, you can actually, you can secure natural rights and promote the common good in a variety of ways. I think something, at least, you got to choose one of the, the rule of the one, the rule of the few, the rule of the many. But in practice, they're all pretty mixed usually. Like, a lot of monarchies have, judges and even parliaments or whatever. In practice, they're all pretty mixed. But I don't think that the only way to do it, or the best way to do it, is always like the American Republic, the early American Republic in every circumstance. I think that'd be idiotic to say.
Well said. There's a lot in there. The code has changed. The people changed. The code has changed. Caldwell, I interviewed him. His book, Age of Entitlement, about the crisis of two constitutions. Oh wait, I'm confusing Kessler's book. There's the Caldwell book, Age of Entitlement, which is about the development of a new constitution within the United States, and then Kessler's book, Crisis of the Two Constitutions. Both fantastic reads. I think anybody who follows this channel, listens to me, should definitely read both of those books to get a better understanding of where we are today. And you did leave it open-ended. Yeah, there are other regimes that are possible. The American Republic, as founded in 1789, isn't the only way. It was the right way at the right time for the right people in the right circumstances. People that had gone through history together, had a shared common language, religion, blood, had spilled their blood, had fought the wars, and that was the right thing at the right time. I'm coming to appreciate that perhaps the focus wasn't on the three branches of government, constitutional republic, but rather doing the right thing at the right time for the right kind of people in order to secure the natural rights of men, which is great. But you know what? It opens up the door to new possibilities when you begin to perceive it that way, instead of solely focusing on the founding as like, it's all about the three system, the constitutional republic. That was the goal. I don't know if it was a goal, and I'm no scholar. I'm just a dude with the mic asking questions, which is why I love having these conversations.
Well, they did love the Republican form of government, and so do I. Because I think we don't realize what you give up if you want to become a subject rather than a citizen. But you really do give something up. That Republican form of government is powerful. It's created some of those beautiful, those small republics, created some beautiful things back in the day, and there's something noble about it. And I'm a fan. I don't want to say it otherwise. I think that I really am. But there's a lot of ways to skin the cat, and the founders themselves left the Constitution. I don't know why conservatives don't talk about this. If you want to change it, they had a way to change it, right? Yeah. I mean, that's because they knew that this was, these things needed to be altered. And if this shouldn't sound scary to people, we're talking about actually creating something like refounding in a way, or shaping a founding in a way that some changes at the founding level in a way that actually lead to to good. Just like it did for those rebels who stood up and hammered out a form of government in the 18th century.
One last question. It's an easy one. Here it comes. You mentioned it. You've alluded to it already. John Adams' famous quote that this system of republic is only suitable for moral and religious people. The amount of people in the United States that identify as having no religion is increasing all the time. Atheism seems to be on the spread. The decline of the Christian church in America seems to be obvious. To what extent is the solution to the problems found in? What is the relevance of? Do we incorporate more? How do we promote more? Should we not promote more? What is the role of the moral and virtuous people, and in the words of the founders, a Christian people? How do we square everything that's going on today with the past, with the future? Because I can say for me personally, I grew up both Catholic and Jewish, which means neither one of them really stuck. I went through a very militant, atheistic, super cringe period in my 20s after reading, Atlas Shrugged, going to George Mason for economics like a big dummy. And then, over in the last, 5 to 8 years, man, I've really been drifting towards and now sort of them walking towards, and now maybe purposefully striding towards a more religious life for myself. And I can say I've reaped the rewards already, and I can see the context from 1789 to today, the role. What do you think? Where does this all fit into the puzzle for the future? Do we promote it? Do we not promote it? What, like, the easy question?
Yeah, you're right. I think this is really important. I think we've all been kind of lied to on this. So, look, let's start at the beginning. Let's start at the end. The end game is oh well, this is going to be a secular world, and that's just where things are going. and religion is dying, and Christianity in particular is dying, and yada yada. I mean, I think that all of that is a kind of hilarious overkill. And this is what I would say is you're not going to eradicate religion. We live in a slipstream where people were even able to think these kinds of things about some kind of secularism being mainstream. That's never been the case, never will be the case, never really even was the case here. You actually look at the scientists and so forth, and they're believing all kinds of things about spiritual whatever realities, even in the last century. And so I would say, Epstein's little temple, whatever that is, the most normal thing in the world in human societies is for there to become some kind of sex cult with some elites at the top. I mean, and maybe some demons or deities are involved, and maybe they're not. I mean, and the ancient Greeks and Christians said sometimes they were real beings and sometimes they weren't. Right? So this, in other words, you're not going to get rid of the spirituality. You're not going to get rid of religion. It will come back. The old gods are already coming back, and you see it in our culture, in our art. That's becoming, I think, more demonic in a way, demonstrably, in the way it looks. So you don't have to believe in any of this stuff to see, like, this is all that pagan stuff, or all that kind of worship of minor deities or whatever. That's coming back, and already. And then with Christianity and the other major religions, these things have ebbed and flowed in different ways at different times, right? So our conception of history here, I think, is just very poor, because the one thing that we haven't thought about in history and philosophy and everything else is religion. We only disparaged it, for the most part, over the last century or so in our educational system. So I think that that religion, in a way, is going to come back in a very powerful way, because people are going to have to make a choice about what they really believe and whether they can really live in a kind of materialist dispensation, as you have these virulent radical ideologies growing and turning into a kind of religious fervor. And so I don't think you can't eradicate. Cicero said, I mean, religion is natural to human beings, okay, you can do with that what you want, but when you got so many people agreeing on that, I think that is absolutely true. And Christianity has absolutely been corrupted in the mainstream churches and whatever. It's been divided over the last 1,000 years in various ways. But, is it over? Oh, no. I mean, I think we're on the cusp of a kind of a revival or awakening. I'm not sure, to what extent America will play a role in that. I'm not sure, like, how it all works, but it's not going away, man. And you can't do what we've done and not face the consequences. And we're talking about one generation, like acting like we know that you can go without religion, because we have like one generation of experience as religion has ebbed and flowed in American history. No, I see people much more spiritually serious and asking these questions and talking about them in a more intellectual way, who are younger, than I see among entire like garbage trucks full of boomer culture from the last 30-40 years.
Oh, the boomers. I appreciate that answer, Matt. And I feel it out there as well, more people asking questions. And for me, I've come to the position to ask the question by going down the offered path of the left. Yeah, where I was hedonistic. I did, pursue totally pleasures of the flesh. I did think that material gains would fill the hole in my heart, but it didn't. And like, I know by practice, and let me tell you, I did not half-ass it. Okay. Like, I went all the way in. And I did all the things. And you know what? It all left me very wanting. And to see that the path out of that is into maybe perhaps a universal truth, or at least something that has unending forgiveness and kindness and compassion and love, man, that's like a way better place to be than like chasing, the next high, the next tail, the next whatever. All those things invariably led to an empty feeling. So when I say that I partook to get to the point to where I can authentically ask the question, because man, I need it, like I can feel it.
Yeah.
And I think to the extent that people take what's offered by the left and swallow it and go through it and do it, and then come out and then still be like, wait, what? I'm not so sure that this was the right thing.
Yeah. No, I mean, I agree, and it has to be authentic. Like you have to be asking real questions. Like what makes you happy? What makes you happy? You're listening to this. Why are you unhappy? What is the purpose of your life? I mean, why are you here? What are you going to do with the time that you're given? And I think that a lot of people, they've just been lied to about that and sold a bill of goods that ultimately enslaves them. And it's not about like ethics, is not about like morality, the 10 commandments. It's not about a set of rules like trying to, enslave you. It's the opposite. And if it doesn't work, then, if it is enslaving you, then screw that, right? If there's a tyrannical God who's trying to, give his rules to control you. Okay, well, yeah, that is awful. I wouldn't want that. But what I would say is, I think people are waking up to the fact, what if there is a purpose to my life that's much higher than anyone's ever told me? What if I'm not just a sack of meat? And I know it, people know it in their souls. Like there's something else out there. I'm not satisfied. What ultimately is going to satisfy me? What is meaningful? What's going to add that meaning and purpose to my life? And you can see it's not just hedonism. It has to involve sacrifice. It has to involve some kind of suffering in an organized way, though, to get stronger. Like they see that, and ultimately, like that is the religious desire, right? To serve this higher cause and purpose, to ultimately yourself we rise up, and we know. I think we just know that we are not just meat sacks floating around the sun. Like there is something else going on here. There's some other order here, and we want to participate in it. And what the genius of the rational creature that's man is that in some way we can take positive action. We can participate in something higher than ourselves. And so yeah, I mean, this isn't over. Like religion doesn't go away, doesn't get squashed out. And just because we live in this morass of crap, it doesn't mean it's always going to stay this way. And regardless, I mean, I'll go out fighting.
I remember being, as a kid, I feel like I was taught that virtue and morals were limiting, and they were chains, things that needed to be escaped. And someone would say family values to me, and that was like a red flag. Like, oh, that's
right.
Awful,
right?
Oppressive. They hate you. They hate you. People
Yes.
that say family values hated you, in the 80s and 90s, right?
Yep.
It's look, my dad and I don't have a great relationship. He never taught me anything about any of this stuff. No one ever said to me morals and virtues are like the cheat code to happiness, right? They're like, it's not and it's not a cheating way to do it, because there's a lot of hard work and stuff that goes involved in that, but it's not something that's meant to keep you down or to repress or oppress you, but it's really the opposite. It's like, this is the algorithm of life. Like if you do these things, like good things happen to you. You are happy, and the people around you are happy, and good things happen.
Yeah.
And it's maybe it was just my personal life, but I think it's emblematic of that time period where I was told this was a bad thing. The only way to happiness was to eschew those bonds, to just kick them free and go pursue whatever pleasure you wanted, and just do you as long as you don't hurt anybody else. Right? That was it. As long as you don't hurt anybody else, it's fine. Whatever you're doing is fine. Well, I've come to understand that that's probably not the entire story.
Yes. Yes. I mean, one thing about just struck me like while you were saying that, because I hear that all, as long as I don't hurt anyone else, we've all dealt with that the whole time. And it's like, well, if, again, like let's move from the proposition that religion is just a kind of a bunch of lies and a bunch of fake rules. But if it's not, then they would be saying, no, you actually are hurting other people around you that you have relationships with, or engage in whatever, robbing a bank or having sex when you shouldn't with someone. I mean, like, so you actually are hurting people. But the other thing is, the claim would be you're hurting yourself, right? I mean, it's like you're damaging yourself, and what we mean by that is you're not living to the highest, like, fullest purpose. Like, you're not becoming stronger and happier. You're doing something that actually is hurting yourself. And I guess what kills me now is, and I may not care if you're religious or not, like, just there's some obvious things right now, I think, that every sociologist who's honest would be like, yeah, it'd be pretty bad if we encouraged early sexual activity, like, super young, on a bunch of high school kids, and told them a bunch of crazy things about gender and sexuality. Like, that would be kind of bad. That'd be crazy. That would be harmful to them. Even on the consent principle, like, wait till people are more mature and they can find themselves and blah, blah, blah. You could at least say that. And it's like, your grandma would have told you this, right? I mean, that was the argument for all of it. And it wasn't even an argument. It was like, well, but like you said, everyone's reasoning their way to it. It's like that we've reduced it to the absurd. So now, of course, you've seen this. All these feminists are reasoning to the point where, like, oh yeah, well, patriarchy, like, we're not going to have sex with you until we're ready to have a baby, And everyone's like,
I
that
accept.
was called marriage.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like,
Exactly.
the reason people did that is not because they were perfect, or or prudes or whatever, but they realize, like, generally, like, that's the way to go. It keeps everyone happy. You try to stay in that. My father-in-law calls it the river. Like, stay in the river of marriage to get to where you need to go. Sometimes you're gonna want to get out. Sometimes it's gonna be stormy, but just stay in the damn river, right? Go with the natural flow of life. You have kids, you do these things, and it takes you. It lets you build in virtue and move forward in a way that's positive. And I don't know. I mean, so I have mixed feelings about that. I mean, I do think that, like, you can chase nature out, but it's going to come back, and you're going to face the consequences. And so in some ways, there's a lot of white pills to be taken on this score. I think people are just kind of waking up and looking around going, wait a minute, this has nothing to do with some weird culture war against, prudes in the South who want to control my life in the bedroom. This is about what actually is going to make us all happy and allow us to have a productive society.
Yeah.
But then on the other hand, there's a lot you can do with the social, kind of technological, institutional control they have, and they're still breaking everything down.
Yeah. I just read Mere Christianity, and
Oh, wow.
and there's a really great analogy that he gives there. The morality that I was taught. He said, imagine a fleet of ships, and the first level of morality is just to make sure the ships don't run into each other. And that was basically the level of morality that I was taught. Just don't run your ship into somebody else, right?
Yeah.
Then he says, well, there's a second level of morality, which is, how do you maintain that ship? Is it painted? Are the maintenance records up to date? Is it tip top? Are you the best ship that you can be? And I've heard other people call this being like the most finely tuned instrument that you can be yourself, to participate in an orchestra that brings the solution. And then the fleet, you have to be the best ship that you can be, so you can be in the fleet. And then the third level of morality is like, where is the fleet going and why? And, I was never taught those other two levels. I was only ever taught the first one. And it's not enough, everybody. If there's anything I can give you, it's just not enough. The hedonistic treadmill is not enough. Pleasure seeking for its own end is not enough. Eventually, you do damage, and eventually, if you're lucky, you just end up feeling empty. Yeah. Most likely, you do some damage either to yourself or other people along the way, and that's not a good feeling to have either. So, if you take one thing away from me, guys, there's more to life than pleasure seeking. And I figured that out the hard way. Matt, I really love.
Well, we all
go
have to. I mean, we all have to. I mean, and everyone out there has to go through this in some way and figure it out. And it's powerful to hear what you're saying, because I think a lot of people can relate, in some way to what you're describing. These days, so I'm moved by it.
Oh, well, thanks you. I'm just being as honest as I can be. This life of mine, I had no idea it was going to happen, and here it is. I started off pouring my guts out. I'm just going to continue doing that along the way, and just asking questions of people to help me figure out the world a little bit more each day that we go by. And this conversation certainly helped me do that. I know it's definitely helped the audience. I love what you're doing, Matt. I love the fact that it's works. Got to do the works. You got to make the work, do the work. You got to be the change, make the change. You got to do all the things, and you're doing that. And you've correctly identified so many of the key issues. And you're not standing on the sidelines, just writing op-ed pieces to make you feel good and to make the boomer donors happy, because y'all, that ain't gonna cut it. That ain't gonna cut it, and you know it. Tell people where they can find more of your work again, Matt, because I want people to support you and I want them to benefit from what you're doing as well.
Well, absolutely. The Twitter that's not good for my soul is at DocMJP, DOCMJP on Twitter. Newfounding.com. We're about to rev up some forums there. People might be interested, like-minded people banding together, talking about different things. That's going to evolve in a pretty serious way over the next few weeks. So newfounding.com. And then products and services from people who don't hate you. You'd find it interesting. It's just once a week newsletter. Joinalign.us. Joinalign.us is exciting. It's growing really fast. And then there's American Mind at Claremont for all the best op-eds in the country at AmericanMind.org. And there is a focus there, in fact, on providing value beyond the usual, rantings about how bad things are. So we do talk at AmericanMind.org about what ought to be done. And Claremont, it really is a special think tank in that respect. And that's all I got.
Absolutely. It's been wonderful becoming part of the Claremont family, getting to know you guys, getting to know the subject matter, getting to know the content, the reason why we're all here, and the foundations for everything that we're doing. I appreciate that. I appreciate the opportunity from you and Ryan and from everyone there. Really remarkable experience. Thank you so much, Matt. I really appreciate it. And I'm going to give my guys a little bit of an outro, but this is where we say goodbye. And I say thank you very much, and can't wait to run into you again. Sorry I missed the gala. Hopefully I'll be at the next one. And until then, thank you very much, Mr. Matt Peterson. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me on. I mean, we could sit here and talk for another 3 hours, which would kill both of our days. But that's because it's so enjoyable. And you know what? We should say, after all the talk about hedonistic pleasures, the higher purposes are give you even more satisfaction and happiness. And part of that is just actually having conversations like this with people like yourself.
Oh, well, that's very kind. I really appreciate it, Matt. Hopefully you can come back in a couple months and tell us all the great things that Newfounding has gotten accomplished, and how we can support you further in your efforts. Thank you very much. All right, guys.
Absolutely.
We are wrapping up here. Thank you very much to Matt. I'll talk to you soon. Guys, if you want to get together with people that see the world the way that you do, that think the way that you do, that are ready to make relationships, are ready to build companies, build causes, build friendships, just to elevate the energy, come to Jack Brunch. I got to tell you, the face everybody has on their face is joy. It's pure joy when you get together with people that share your values, share your language, know the same media stuff, know the same inside jokes, have the same values inside. Come hang out, break bread, drink wine, spread cheer. I'm telling you guys, it's really a wonderful experience. It's not just for dudes. There's women, there's kids. Come down and check it out. We're at jackedbrunch.com. Putting it up on the screen right now. We are in Austin on November 7th. We are in Northern California on the 21st of November. After that, we've got Denver, LA, which will be in Orange County, Seattle, and then Washington, D.C., wrapping it up in February. So please come down, check it out, jackedbrunch.com. Follow us on Twitter at JackBrunch. You can follow me at Jack Murphy Live on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, everywhere, all around the social media universe. Subscribe to the podcast on Spotify, on Apple, whatever. Hit subscribe here on YouTube or on Rumble. Share it, get it out, beat the algorithms. YouTube has no interest in promoting me and my content. You know why. So let's take matters into our own hands and shove it out there. Send it to your friends, email it to people, post it onto Twitter, all those wonderful things. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. I appreciate it, as always. I am Jack Murphy, and we are out. Thank you. On this show, we're driven by curiosity. We want to chart a path forward. Best people, best conversations. We're on a journey, and it's just getting started.